Okay.
Hello everyone. Welcome to the second episode of BOITHOK podcast. As in the last episode, you guys have seen we have done with our program manager and program associate. This one is kind of special because we have brought the economically knowledgeable people in South Asian community, at least South Asian SFL community. Let us go one by one to everyone, and we are welcoming all the viewers. And thanks for coming here. And once again, I'm Dibbo, your co-host, and Archie, please.
Yes, I'm here, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to the second episode. It's really good to see everyone. I hope everyone's seeing us. Yeah, I'm currently working as regional coordinator of Comstrack, South Asia Content Communication Track. And today we're going to be discuss about something quite contemporary, a contemporary topic, I must say. We're gonna see some perspectives and opinions on the concept of economical theory and how South Asian countries are emerging and adapting to different new ventures or ideas that are being accepted by the government. So yeah, let's not drag. Let's proceed with our guests. Anyone who's gonna introduce yourself?
Okay, I can start. So thank you, Dibbo and Ashi, for having us here, and thank you for everybody joining in today. So we are the CATS track of South Asia SFL. So I'm the regional coordinator for academics at South Asia, and we have Maksudur and Arpit who will introduce themselves. So very excited to be here, and again, thank you for calling us here, having us here, and thank you for everybody joining in.
So hello everyone, I'm Arpit. So I'm currently the national coordinator for academic research. So it's really wonderful to join in this conversation, and we will be exploring how the potential of markets and liberalism can put us in a high growth economic trajectory. So it's really wonderful to have this conversation and spread the message of liberalism. Yeah, now Maksudur, you can introduce.
Hi everyone, so I'm Maksudur. I'm currently the National Coordinator for Academics Training, and it's actually amazing to be over here and actually talk about that we all can enjoy. So I'm looking forward to our conversation.
That's great. So as always, so in the earlier podcast, what we did is as all of us are from like SFL and we are LC first, then we came on to this position. So hopefully we can share like what made you guys join in SFL, like what attracted you in SFL. Krupa.
Sure, thank you. So what made me join SFL was I was very new to the liberal space at the time, but it was just that I was doing a few courses on public policy, on economics at the time, and I had this habit of whenever some speaker would come and talk to us about economics or any topics in public policy, I would go back to their LinkedIn, I would check what they've done, what's their career trajectory been, and I noticed that all these speakers who used to come, so many of them had SFL on their LinkedIn. So I kept on wondering what this SFL is exactly about. This is back in 2020. And then I looked it up, and then I got to know that, oh, this is interesting. I looked at the website. I found it to be very interesting. I applied for it. I got in as an LC next year. And then after that, it's been, I think, 4 years now that I am part of SFL. I started as an LC in 2021 or 2. I'm not sure. 2, I think. Yeah, this is my 4th year. So 2. And then later on, I became the RC next year, which is the regional coordinator for South India. And then the 3rd year, I became regional coordinator for ACADS track. And this is my 2nd year of being the regional coordinator for ACADS track. One thing that I would like to share about SFL is that once it started, it happened, okay? And once I was in it, I was in it. I was in it for the people, as we say it very commonly in SFL also, that once you come for the ideas and then you stay for the people. That's something that we say very often, right? Which is also true, because I met so many people from so many different countries. I made friends all over, not just in South Asia, but across regions, in Europe, in America, in Africa, and then did a couple of fellowships over here with SFL, which got me to travel and meet these people as well. And one after the other opportunities just came in. So I am, again, this has been a space which is responsible, I would say, for my not just my academic growth, professional growth, but also personally on a personal level, it has helped me a lot. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
my
it's like a
journey.
pot of gold, right? I always say that SFL is like a pot of gold. The
Yeah,
more you dig in, the more you'll be finding more new things.
that's true. Yeah, that's
I
true.
think Mr.
And what I've
Krupa,
also
yeah,
sorry.
yeah, please
No,
go
so what
on.
I've also noticed is that you come in as an LC, but then you have like a million opportunities in front of you. It then depends, the onus is on you, that how much more you want to dig in, as Archie said, like, how much more do you want to get in it? How many more opportunities do you want to tap onto? It's endless. Okay. You have so many organizations that SFL knows, that SFL partners with, that SFL aligns with ideologically. So we, as people from SFL, as SFL coordinators, we also obviously align with that ideology, and for us it becomes so easy to access these organizations, because obviously it's not just as an individual. When you go, you might find it difficult, but when you go and represent an organization, it becomes easier, right? So yeah, I think I would completely agree with what Archie said, and yeah, that's about me. Thank
I
you.
think
Yeah, also Krupa is one of the Bastiat fellow. You should also mention that.
Yeah, so so I was a Frederick
more.
Bastiat Fellow at the Mercatus Center in 2023, 2024. And yeah, that was also something that came to me through my other organization. So SFL is one. Then I also work at Center for Civil Society, which is another pro-libertarian, pro-liberal think tank in India. So all these opportunities, they're all interrelated, I would say. And yeah, it's been wonderful.
Yeah, what I was trying to say is like most of the people I have met or like we have talked to all had the same goal or like same view of SFL, that we get to meet more people, we get to go somewhere, we get to like do stuff. That's the whole point that attracted most of the people I have seen. So Arpit, what made you join SFL?
Yeah, so when I used to study my undergrad, so my college used to be like almost 1.5 hour away. So I was just looking for some productive ways of spending my time of almost 3 hours for and back. So I then stumbled upon a podcast called The Seen and Unseen by Amit Verma. So basically, I grew up in an environment where everything I used to look state as a solution, but that podcast actually sort of tilted my viewpoint of actually looking at markets and choice as an instrument of bringing in change. So then I started reading more about those kind of thoughts, and I don't know what the social media algorithms picked up. One day, some kind of webinar of Students for Liberty popped up in my social media feeds, and I just registered for it. I remember it was hosted by Rofa Sheikh. She was a local coordinator from Mumbai. So that was my first interaction with Students for Liberty. And then my email also, because of registration in that webinar, got in their database. And when the LC program rolled out, I got to know about it. So then I signed up for it. Fortunately, I got into the program, and from there it has been an upward journey of learning about different liberal principles, making friends from across the geographies, learning about different lens of evaluating a problem. And I also stayed on with Students for Liberty because it was helping me grow in evaluating every issue from a more liberal viewpoint, where we do not use the brute force of the state, but use softer instruments like public choice, giving competition in the different marketplaces. So that is what made me stay in the SFL, and currently my responsibility is to look at research aspects. So if we could do better training of of the coordinators who are coming, so we can create more change agents in the society who can carry our thought. So that is what our endeavor is now channelized towards. So yeah, this was my brief journey with SFL.
That's great. All of our market enthusiasts, thanks. So on the last person, Maksud.
Oh boy. So every time someone asks me, how did you find out about SFL? And I spent at least an hour talking about how did I find and what I'm currently doing. So the first time at the end of my freshman year, I actually went to a conference in Thakkar. It's called Thakkar Global Dialogue. And I found about foreign policy and how it can be liberalized. So I started looking for an organization that can actually teach me the way that United States bureaucrats think and how to look at the world, their worldview. And all of a sudden, I saw one of my friends share something that strongly related to foreign policy, but that organization that shared was from Students for Liberty. I started investigating what it does, and if I join, what can I do? Because as a student of international relations, I've always seen that in Bangladesh, the only way you could practice democracy is casting your vote. And even that, at some point, was taken away. So the democracy of Bangladesh was in such a dire state, I thought we need to do something from an individual level. So that level of analysis thought made me to apply to Students for Liberty. And I'm going to be a little frank. For the first 1 year, it was during COVID. So every program was supposed to be happening physically, but everything was getting cancelled, and I was not having a great time because I was thinking, oh no, I'm not going to join another webinar. Because if you guys remember, during COVID, everything was online and everything was meeting based. But like Arpit, I joined a colloquy organized by ROFA, and it completely changed my conversation. Like before that, we didn't have any conversation where everyone could take part, everyone could share their viewpoint, even if they differed with each other's worldview. So that made me realize there's a lot of opportunities here. We just need to tap into it. And slowly but surely, when I started to become proactive in SFL's activities, when I learned what SFL does, and these all things made me to internalize about SFL's vision and mission. And this way, I got into meet so many people. The first local retreat in Bangladesh, I was happy to meet, especially Arshi and Dibbo. It was our first time. And after that, I would say it hasn't been linear. Of course, it's been up and down. But right now, I would say I'm in a position, both personally and professionally, thanks to SFL. And I also want to thank our staff, especially Ayman and Denise, who actually made it possible. Because whenever I asked, whenever there was an asking, they always made sure that at least I got the opportunity to actually prove myself. They believed in me when even I couldn't believe in myself. So I would say SFL has been truly, it would be a short thing to say, but truly life-changing for me.
You straight up gave a Oscar speech. Nice. Okay. So let's move on. So today's topic was like we gave it a like what something different title, like can we ever become rich? But the point of it is to talk about the classical liberal principles are basically more like free market principles. Are they applicable in Bangladesh, South Asia, or more? I would say, like, was there any indication or any of the aspects that have been taken in South Asia that I were some part of like taken from free market ideologies, but it didn't fully been implemented. That's what I have seen. Like, if I have to give an example, like Bangladesh opened up its like opened up to foreigners when after the war, independent war in 1971. Around the time of I think 1982 or something, around that time, Bangladesh opened up like foreign investors who invest in the country, and that like grew the economy gradually in Bangladesh. Like that's how textile industry happened in Bangladesh. So that's one of the examples that I feel like I have seen of like the market idea, but not fully implemented, but it's basically at least touched on it. So as three of you or everyone here have some kind of experiences with that kind of research and policies, I would like to ask you guys, have you seen or do you guys think that in South Asia, classical liberalism principles are more like in free market principles can be implemented, or what's your view on it?
Okay, so I think, of course, it can be implemented, and it has been implemented to a great extent as well. If you look at it, like for example, if I give you the Indian example of the LPG reforms happening in 1991, back in 1991, right? So before 1991, we were when we got our independence in 1947. After that, we were a socialist country, and we believed that the government was, and it made sense also at that time because India had newly gained its independence. So what happened was, we as Indian citizens, we did not really, we needed somebody to guide us. We needed the government to tell us what to do. We needed our industries to become stronger, our basic livelihoods to be taken care of and directed by the government, right? So it did make sense at that time when those policies were implemented earlier. But as India went into 5-year plannings, there came a point when we started realizing that, okay, maybe this is not working. Maybe this is something that India needs to do away with, right? Especially when basic, facilities or basic requirements that people had, basic innovations that happened, we as people of India could not get access to it for a very, very long time. So, to give you a fair picture of what used to happen pre 1991, the basic of the things, such as, say, these are some very common goods that we see around today, which is scooties or say telephones, etc. So now, at that time they were newly, coming in the market. Even cylinders, for that matter, gas cylinders, right? Now this is something that my mom used to tell me, that for cylinders they would have to like register, and they would have to wait in a queue for like 7-8 years to actually get a cylinder on their name, an official one, right? Similar cases were with scooties, with telephone lines, etc. Only the very elite people through their connections would be able to get those, but common people, this was the queue. Now, why, if we look into the reasons why that was happening, the reason majorly was because these things were first of all, whenever any innovation happened, or any manufacturing that was supposed to happen, these industries, those were the manufacturing industries, they would have to take multiple permissions from the government. And we know that government approvals have been a very slow process. It's not just back then, but even today, if we see anything we need to get done from the government, we usually hesitate that, oh shit, this is going to take a lot of time for us to get done, right? Even today, that's the same. So back then, of course, it was worse. And so these things, and the government would basically like tell the manufacturers how much to produce, when to produce, whom to give the produced goods to, at what price to give to. They would have price ceilings, price floors, etc., right? So the manufacturers or these entrepreneurs who, first of all, there was no incentive for innovation, because even if there was some innovation happening, the entrepreneurs would not have the right or the say in it, right? So the market mechanism was entirely distorted, because there is demand in the market, but there is no permission to supply. And this was creating the entire chaos, right? So, I mean, with all of these happening, eventually there was also a BOP crisis that India went through after, I think it started after 1985 majorly, like 1988, 1990, etc. These were the heavier years. And then in 1991, we did open our doors. We brought the LPG reforms, liberalization, privatization, and globalization reforms. At that time, I mean, again, so when that happened, immediately after that, there were changes noticed, right? We did see that people were getting out of the poverty line. Right, people were climbing out of poverty, extreme poverty. Reasons being because now they had the incentive to innovate. One, entrepreneurs would be more encouraged to do that. More employment opportunities were generated, and the government was not the one making all the decisions. Now, again, there is one more aspect to it, that why is it not a good practice for government to make all decisions? Because they don't really know what's happening at the ground, not all the time, right? So that's why we talk about decentralized planning. That's why we talk about decentralized implementation, because if I am closer to the ground, please ask for my opinion. Please ask for stakeholders' opinions who are close to ground and who know the ground reality more than people sitting in the government offices, right? And again, that's another whole other debate, which talks about why these government employees, or people working in the government, again, why do they have incentives to do it in the first place? They don't have enough incentives. But again, I'm not going to get there because it'll take too much time. But coming back to this, so we did have a few improvements that were noticed, and we keep noticing that, right? So but there was a quote by Raghuram Rajan, who's also an Indian economist. He was the RBI governor 2 terms ago. So he once said in one of his books that, in 1991 reforms, India did open the windows to its windows to get more fresh air from outside, but it could never open its doors, which means that there were a lot of opportunities that we could still tap onto. But because of this fear that, we cannot give away everything in the hands of people, otherwise there would be exploitation, we cannot privatize everything, because we need government's direction, because government is going to tell us what to do, because it is important for us to know what government thinks, because again, it's that body that wants the good for people, and we as individuals cannot make our decisions for ourselves. So this entire ideology, I feel, that has also, and of course there is also politics involved in it, big time. That more than the ideology, I think politics part plays out. But that's what I think. That sorry, I think I forgot what your initial question was. I was too much in the
Yeah, the question was like, what's your thought on the implementable like free market abilities? Like, what are the things
Right,
that?
right, right. So yeah, so I think that we can do it, and we've done it also, but we can do it way better than and in many more ways, especially where government is not really, I mean, it's not so, I think that if the government, it's not an essential sector where it's like if the government does not do it, nobody else can. In such
Hmm.
sectors the government can do it and should do it, in fact. So if you talk about like stuff like defense, okay, that cannot be given to general people. Nobody's going to pick it up, and it's going to be a completely chaotic environment then, right? So the government should do it, right? But things like, I would say transportation, does the government really need to be there? I think private sector is doing very well in that, right? And there are so many other sectors where education, okay,
Hmm.
private sector education has been better, I would say. Of course there are government organizations also which are doing good, but it can be done by the private sector also. So if it can be done by the private sector, why should the government invest their time and energy in doing this? Because again, very important factor that I forgot to mention, that we are also very short on state capacity. So let's not forget that we have very limited number of people in the government itself. And if the government has to take on so many responsibilities, so many different areas in which it has to do work, it's not going to be able to do good work in any of those areas, because you're
In also some
overwhelming.
cases, it also degrades the quality of works.
Quality,
Since you have
exactly.
mentioned education sector, I
Yeah.
remember that even though government is granting uh, different opportunities or free education systems in institutions, in public institutions, but it also degrades a great number of quality, and also most importantly, they are not actually investigating in training the facilitators. So
Hmm.
better if it's decentralized and privatized, because that will also bring more interested people who also get incentivized in that way.
Right.
Hmm.
So, to your point, Ashi, recently we were involved in a research study, which led us to explore some organizations, some institutes, basically, some government institutes and some private institutes, educational institutes. So, what we realized was, and we were also talking to a lot of stakeholders who are involved. What we realized was that in government schools, colleges, etc., there would be equipment, for example, okay, there would be digital devices, they are in place, okay, because again the government funds it, it's the taxpayers money, they fund it, there is, so they will bring in like a regulation that all schools need to have this so and so minimum digital requirement, right? With their different policies, etc. And these
Everyone.
schools and colleges would have that. But when we actually went to these colleges, we realized that nobody was using it. It was just on the wall, okay, nobody was touching it also. In fact, there was an instance when we needed them to start the system because we had a presentation to do for the students. It was a government ITI institution. And what happened was, the teacher who was there in the class could not do it, okay. Teacher was, I mean, should be able to do it, was not able to do it. She then calls the technical coordinator who's supposedly the in charge of all of these devices. That person could also not do it. Like, you are the technical coordinator, you're also not able to do it, which means that they were literally not using these devices at all. And we saw like literally plastic to it. 3 years ago it had come to the institution and they had not even removed the plastic. So whose money is getting wasted over here? Okay, and why are
Yes.
we doing this in the first place? Like, of course, I'm making it very simplistic in nature, it's not as simple as I'm making it sound. But these are some basic things that we need to think about, I think. And maybe we can come up with some ways in which we can do away with these practices of wastage. We can bring more efficiency, and in the government systems also, if the government has to do it, I mean, there needs to be efficiency, and there needs to be incentives aligned for people who are doing it. Without incentives, nobody's going to give a damn about what's happening,
I think the
right?
main fear in South Asia, sorry,
Hmm.
basically the main fear I have seen in South Asia was like, okay, if the government doesn't do this, who will? Like,
Yeah.
let's say, like you were saying that, okay, the education sector should like that should be a privatized section so that education will improve, because the private property or the privatized corporation will have a like goal to get a better education so that they will have a more students, and basically there's an incentive for them to do better. Like for government there isn't, but the thing is in public, like if I say someone that, okay, let's say there is no education board, they will just freak out. Okay, so how can we get the education, how can we do this or do that? That's one problem. Also, you mentioned like somewhere they had the equipments but they didn't know how to like operate those. I have seen in one school in Bangladesh, like they have the same situation. Like each school has to have these many computers and labs. I have seen teachers taking the laptops to their homes for personal use, and the students didn't get to use any of it. I have seen that firsthand. I wouldn't say which school or where, but I have seen it firsthand. So I think it's like common scenario in everywhere where the government is controlling this kind of things. So yeah, Arpit, let's move on to him. What do you think?
Yeah, so just adding on to Krupa, what she said was India has done some kind of economic reforms, but they have been some of them have been sectoral and have been in various gradations. So, like post independence, it is understandable that because we had a bad experience with imperialism and colonialism, so we sort of adopted a closed economy. But there were a lot of inflection points in India's trajectory where they could have made the shift. But India's story was also riddled with a lot of political upheavals, and there were people with, I would not say there was no contestation of ideas, because there was a party known as Swatantrata Party, who did have a lot of economic ideas which tilted towards free markets and liberalism. And it was also the main opposition party in the initial years. But slowly, due to fragmented politics, those ideas could not find a lot of resonance in the public, and there were then waves of cult politics where a lot of politicians had like strong sway over a lot of public institutions. So one of the thing very sacrosanct for economic reforms to work is to have independent institutions. So but there was a lot of erosion of these institutions and regulators, so we could not take that. But anyway, post 1991, where we had the balance of payment crisis, so that crisis was an opportunity for India to then make a tilt towards economic reforms. And from there, India has been on an upward trajectory, like almost bringing around 30 crores people out of the poverty trap, and the middle class has also been rising. So there is a lot of rise in aspiration of the people, and it has created a new even sectors like information technology sector, where India is the dominant, one of the dominant leaders. You will find many of the tech CEOs probably of Indian origin, and it has given a lot of prosperity in Indian cities also, like a lot of MNCs, corporates. So India was able to pull in a lot of global capital towards building this economic infrastructure. But as I said, there are sectors where the government has been having its tentacles still strong, okay, especially in social sector issues, in agriculture, and in a lot of public service delivery, in education and health. So one of the critical point Krupa raised was about state capacity. So we really need to evaluate this in current context, because the tentacles of the state are spread in various domains. So what actually it does is it only dilutes its capacity to deliver. So we really need to architect a new contours of the state so that it can stick to basic things like on rule of law, contract enforcement, and delivering conducive environment where these voluntary market transactions can take place. And we can have a healthy tax scenarios also, because a lot of startup boom is also happening in country, but some of them also migrate out because of compliance cost and heavy taxation structure. So I think if any country wants to grow and leverage the entrepreneurial spirit of the best minds, so they have to create a conducive pull for them to stay back in. So these are the recurring themes which we find. But India has made a lot of progress, and similarly our southeastern neighbors in Bangladesh, with the help of textile growth. So different countries have had different models in different gradations, but with the rise of some polarization, there might be some tilt here and there. But all the countries do recognize that if we really want to have economic growth, we have to transact with the world and open our borders, so that global capital can flow, and we can have more opportunities for.
Yeah, for the market also,
Saw in
for
the
the public.
news that
Sorry.
yeah, no, I was just adding that saw in the news very recently that Apple's supplier is also investing in India probably, and it's also seen as a possibility of economic growth and also employment for Indians. Saw news about that.
Yeah, so India had a scheme called PLI, the Production Linked Incentive. So it's an innovative scheme where if a company manufactures a certain, maybe a quantity of goods, then they get some tax incentives. So one of the largest now Apple manufacturing plants are now shifting to India. So this kind of innovative economic policies can attract companies, and India has been doing good job on manufacturing, but still there is a lot to catch up. Our present government also had like Make in India program to like, because they wanted to increase the share of GDP as in manufacturing, because India had a lot of service based jobs, so they wanted to also expand on manufacturing part. So yeah,
Yeah,
just wanted to.
yeah, Apple's main production is from China. So we all know how's the situation with America and China is. So of course they will like to expand to other countries. So we have a low ratio of like they can get low income people from here. So of course they would like. Also India is like they have turned a great way like as Bangladesh have textile industry. India has like you guys have a mini Silicon Valley kind of thing, so that's booming also. So that's a huge thing that I've seen. Yeah, Maksud.
Well, I would like to add a couple of points in case of India and also, but first let me start with Bangladesh. Like, if you're historically thinking about the situation in Bangladesh, Bangladesh got its independence to the height of Cold War, and at that time, Bangladesh actually wanted the support of the United States, but they refused, and that's where the Soviet Union came in. After the independence, Bangladesh government, much like the Indian government, started to nationalize every industry. And it wasn't until 10 years later when President Rahman came in and he took the country from a central planning stage to a privatized free market economy. So he denationalized almost 10 sectors from Bangladesh, and he reopened Dhaka Stock Exchange. And one of the main things that he took the initiative was creating the economic zone and promoting industry like the RMG industry, the pharmaceutical industry, and the leather industry. And obviously, looking back, we can say that RMG industry obviously took in. It's right now second in the world in terms of production capacity, after China. And the pharmaceutical industry and the leather industry had also been doing good, but it could not rise up to a certain level, especially because of the backward linkage that we have over here. And the government obviously did not take any proper step. They had everything written on paper that this will go from here A to Z, but they did not have any plan or bringing in foreign direct investment into the sectors. And I just saw one video from AP Archive a couple of months ago where they were telling, the reporter was actually telling that Bangladeshi people back in 1990s, they did not like to work under anyone. They wanted to be independent. They wanted to have their own businesses. So they feel working under anyone took your respect away. So I can obviously say that the people of Bangladesh have that entrepreneurial spirit, but they need that support from the government to make things happen. And the current interim government's chief advisor, he obviously had that revolutionary idea of microcredit. That microcredit program gave birth to women entrepreneurs and many small businesses. But it was still not enough to get the country get out of extreme poverty and move into a more developing status. And in that perspective, I would say investing on human capital was almost non-existent in the case of Bangladesh. And Bangladesh also had many opportunities during the past couple of years, especially in the last 20 years, to bring back manufacturing and other industry. Even I heard that Samsung wanted to invest in Bangladesh's microprocessor, but this could not be functionalized to a level that gave each player access a strong property rights, which Bangladesh clearly lacks. And because of this instance, people in Bangladesh likes to call the government that government can take care of everything, and sometimes they even criminalize the private investment because they believe the capitalism. They don't see the capitalism because all they see is cronyism. So whenever people talk about doing business, they say, "Oh, you need to have connection or give something under the table to actually get things done." Because without those incentives, the public sector employees, they do not feel motivated. They feel like it's their right to actually take something under the table. And
Under the table, or in
yeah.
other words, healthy.
So the entrepreneurial spirit, despite having the young minds, the skills, Bangladesh could not have that actual property rights that needed for entrepreneurs to actually succeed. But I do hope that in the next couple of years, there will be proper incentive for the government and also the startups over here that are taking place. Still, there is a lot of shortage of startups, but I believe that Bangladesh had everything and also right now have everything in place. Just need that one incentive from the governments to actually do those things to make it everything possible. And in the case of India, I would like to say that uh, like Bangladesh, India also missed several opportunities to become the manufacturing hub. Indians, the tech entrepreneurs or the tech CEOs, they like to say that we're not like China. China is strongly focused on manufacturing, but we're more a service-based business, service-based country. But I would want to say that despite the Indian government taking places to increase their GDPs, increase their manufacturing plants in the country, in a recent World Bank report, you would say amount, the contribution that India makes to world's manufacturing still less than 2 to 3%, and it's still not a major thing. And if you look at China, it can go as much as 15 to 20% of the world's manufacturing. And so I would say because of the US initiative to actually decentralize manufacturing from China, like India, Bangladesh, and other South Asian countries also have the opportunity to grab the pie of the cake and make the nation more towards a free market economy. But to do that, I believe we truly need that property rights for the governments to hand over the private industry. Other than that, the government doesn't really have any state-owned enterprise that can truly compete on a global stage. But if we invest on private industry, we can actually compete on global stage.
That's a huge thing. You said about private property. So, how do you think private property plays a role in this whole free market economy? Like, I think private property and for free market to actually be a thing in this market or where in South Asia in whole, there should be that everyone should be in a level playing field. But I don't think most of the problem that I have seen was. If there is a central authority who is controlling the market, or let's say the licensing, let's say the rules and all that things, if some of the people, let's say the startups who have a lot of capitals already, they can even in some form of way they can eventually control the market by themselves, because they will try to control the central authorities, because they will know if I control that authority or give incentive to that, I will get some benefits from there. That's the whole problem where free market doesn't exist. Yeah, the problem starts if small people who have smaller capitals, if they want to open something, they find all the hindrance because they don't have that much of a capital like the bigger ones. So what do you guys think about the private property plays a role in implementing the free market like this?
Okay, so I think private property obviously is is like it forms the basis for any free market function to happen, in a systematic manner. Without private property rights in place, it's not. I mean, private property is the most basic. What I'm trying to say is the most basic fundamental thing that should be there in a country, because see, private property. I feel one is that. Let's start with the basics, okay? According to me, if I had a piece of land for myself, let's take it in literal terms, okay? If I had a piece of land for myself, I again have ownership over it. I am accountable towards it, okay? So I have the incentive to work on it, okay? And this applies to not just, I mean, in this example that I gave, this applies to across sectors, right? So when you have property rights in place, that's when an individual has the basis to grow from there. Okay, if you're taking, if there are no property rights, then it's, yeah, there is no incentive for people to function. I would come back to the same incentive point, right? A very, I can think of a very interesting example which is sort of related to private property. So there is this economist in India, his name is Sahil Gandhi. So he's talked about so he has written a paper on urban the state of urban cities in India. and he says that first of all there is this phenomenon called, he talks about this phenomenon called housing vacancy paradox. Okay, so what this is exactly is that India's urban cities are growing very rapidly. Okay, let's take the city of Mumbai. Right, there are thousands and lakhs of people migrating from different regions and coming to Mumbai every day, every single day. Okay, now Mumbai does not have enough space to accommodate everybody, which leads to a lot of other problems. Right now, first is space, second is affordability. Okay, when it comes to urban housing, there is no affordability. Also, these people that come in, they cannot. The real estate prices in Mumbai are so high that they cannot afford to get an apartment for themselves or even like a small room. Okay, for themselves, it's not feasible for them. So what happens is, there are obviously consequences to it that they are not able to afford, so they end up living on the streets. There is a lot of other consequences that leads to that. Right now, apart from that, one study that Sahil Gandhi's paper talks about is that he says that, we talk very often about the housing shortage that exists because of other reasons such as unaffordability, but there is also one other aspect to it, which is that there is housing also. Whatever housing is there, out of that housing also there is a huge chunk. He says, I think 12%, I don't remember the percentage very clearly, but it was something around 12% that remains vacant. Okay, now why is that? Okay, there is housing, there could be more people accommodated, but it goes vacant. The major reason is that there is lack of trust of, like, the people who are owning those houses. They don't trust the laws in the country or the judicial system enough, okay, that they actually rent it out. The reason that they give is that if tomorrow if we rent it out and the tenant does not give us our property back, where are we supposed to go? Because first of all, see, regulations and laws exist on paper, that is true, but look at the state of judicial system. And this brings me again to the point of state capacity. It takes years and years, decades even, to get a case resolved. So obviously people are going to have less trust on the system if this is the state of it, right? So it's very interesting to think about this in a way that there is one problem that exists. When you think about it, there are so many other problems that surround it, like, not affordability is one, affordability in urban housing is one, lack of space is another. But even when the space exists, people are not willing to give it out. A huge chunk of people are not willing to give it out because they don't trust the systems that exist in the country. And this is a very and that's one thing. The other thing is, which also brings me to another paper by Shruti Rajgopalan that I read. Okay, so she was talking about how in cities like Mumbai, she says, see, Mumbai has, so we have something called as floor, so it's called FAR. Okay, so it's basically floor space index. Okay, like how a building, for example, if it's like 100 meter plot, if on that you make one floor, then you have 100 meters. But if you make like 21 floors, then you have 2100 meters, right, of housing, vertical development. So she says that how cities like Mumbai are very behind in that. The ratio is around 1.3, which means that the space in the city, there is, even the space that exists is very underutilized. Okay, whereas she compares it with other cities like New York, where it is as high as 12. In Hong Kong, it is 18. I might be messing up the numbers, but anyway, one city has 12, one city has 18, etc. Right? So it can be done. But again, what is stopping us from doing it? Government regulations. Okay, there are regulations which says that you cannot build beyond a particular limit. If you were to build beyond, I'm again not sure about those exact regulations, I will not quote them since I'm not sure, but yeah, these laws and these regulations exist, which makes it difficult for people to even have space. And this again, so imagine there's a city center, okay, and people are wanting to live around the city center because their job where they go to work is closer. Okay, they want to live around that. But first of all, those city centers would be extremely expensive and non-affordable for any middle-class person to live in, unless they have, inherent property over there. Apart from that, what it does is it pushes people out from the center because there is no vertical growth. There is no space for people to live in. That's why they start moving away from the center, right? Yeah. If there was vertical growth, there would be more accommodation, and people would be able to live closer to their workplaces. That's not happening. They are going away far, which also leads to another burden on transportation of the country, right? So it's like a whole circle. Okay, there is one problem will lead to 10 other problems and 10 other consequences, which somehow we are policy wise, there might be again intentions of doing the right things, But intentions, do they really count? Because if you're not able to implement a policy properly, was that a good policy even to begin with? No, it wasn't. Right. So again, I'm forgetting the question that was asked, but I think these are some very important, factors that we should keep in mind. Um, yeah, and even for state capacity, for that matter, in another paper I read that India has extremely low state capacity in terms of policemen that exist in the country, the judges that exist in the country. Okay, so because of which these things keep on going further and further and further. If there is no stringent laws in terms of, if people of the country are not getting justice on time, what are we even doing? I mean, justice is the most basic thing of all, right? So if that is not served on time when it is required, and it's, there is a case that I'm filing today, and if after 30 years you're giving me result or judgment on it, I'm sorry, but I'm not interested anymore. Or people are even like, there are cases where people have even died, and after that they've got their judgments. This is the state of the Indian judicial system at this point, right?
There are a
So
lot of cases in Bangladesh also like that. That's been going on like more than 20 years, I guess, 20 or 15 years, something like that. I think so. Yeah, more like the people are not getting the choice. Like choice is the main thing. Like if I have choice to do another thing rather than doing this, then the market will find the balance. Otherwise, if I'm forced to do that one thing, like I don't have any other choice to go through, then there is not much of a freedom to go by. Let's hear from Maksud or Arpit.
Private property rights are very sacrosanct if you really want to have a very healthy market system. And India did not have, it's not a fundamental right in India currently, I think. Before it used to be. And there have been a lot of attempts by the government to like nationalize banks, to take away property of individuals or organizations at arbitrary discretionary will. So it basically creates a very bad incentive for an individual to invest long term in building a very productive resource.
Exactly.
Okay, so because all your hard work is just taken away by any government regulation or any kind of bill. So this is not how societies should function in productive manner, because we really need to have control over what we have built, and that is why we should advocate more for these kind of rights. Because if we really want to go on a high economic growth trajectory, it's very important for us to have that kind of ecosystem in place.
So, about the private property rights, I would want to say there is significant gap all across South Asia. I don't even think the bureaucrats understands what is the private property rights. I actually seen first-hand evidence during a presentation by one of the secretaries of Bangladesh, secretaries, not assistant secretary or associate secretaries. When someone asked about a particular law or rights, he became surprised and didn't know what actually to answer in response to that. So he quickly ended his presentation, said he was in a hurry. So I would say that the philosophy of our bureaucrats, I don't even know if there is any philosophy. They don't know how public policy works properly. Yeah, obviously there are people, maybe 10% to 20% of the bureaucrats, they are very well educated, they understand everything, they want to implement it. But the majority of the bureaucrats, they don't know about most of the things to govern a country. And like Krupa mentioned, there is actually no incentive for them to be hormonal or put their own efforts to actually help the people of this country, because they're getting paid no matter what. They're not getting fired. Their job is for life, and they take everything for granted. So just to talk about the land ownership situation in Bangladesh, and I believe it will be similar across South Asia. There is no digitalization about the land ownership across every industrial complex and residential complex. And for the same piece of land, a farmer fights, a residential realtor fights, an industrial fights, and everyone says that this land is mine. And when you do not have actually the laws that define clearly that who owns that land, and there are some government lands that are being unused, and everyone from a small political leader to a big industrial, everyone tries to grab that land and claim it his. Even the defined land, I would say, in the export processing zones, despite having clear rules, clear boundaries, those lands, they do not get the electricity, the gas, and even the proper infrastructure needed to actually operate an industry. So when you cannot give the primary things to do entrepreneurship or business, that land is so contested, then there is the thing about bureaucracy. In a research, it says that small Bangladeshi business needs to wait at least 300 days to properly get all the permit. And that's, I'm talking about serving things under the table, not like you just applied for something and everything will be on process. You need to move file to multiple secretariats and get everything in order. But even after that, you'll see anyone can sue you or take your land, and there is actually nothing you can do if you do not have good connection. So defining the private property rights, having that rule of law, I'd say the first step toward to clearly actually growing the free market principles. Because without ownership of land, there's no incentive to actually get everything to work and put your energy, put your time, and even if your spirit into that particular projects. So we need to really work on the private property, and we can start from the land ownership. Then we can move into much more bigger issues.
There are a couple of points that I wanted to add. One is on what Maksudur said, that these bureaucrats don't really know if how public policy works, etc. So maybe they don't, but I feel maybe they do, right? These people who are getting there, they are not. I mean, these are smart people, okay? So when you meet them, you get to know that maybe they do realize, and maybe they do know what's happening at the ground, or what the problems are and how to fix them. It's just the system in which they are that also plays a very important role, right? So I mean, I don't think that we should be putting everybody under the same umbrella, saying that nobody knows or everybody knows. I think it's a mix of both, right? But again, systems in which they function, they also play a very important role. Maybe they do know the problems, but they cannot do anything about it, right? Because of the system in which they are placed. Or maybe there is, of course, political will. It's a very important factor, right? So it does not exist, and maybe that's why there are no changes happening from their end. So that's one thing. And on what Arpit said, it reminds me of so he as he mentioned that India used to have private property as a fundamental right, and then it was changed from a fundamental right. Now I think at that time the reason from changing it, from removing it from one of the fundamental rights, was because India was in a development stage, which it still is, and it's likely to be in this stage for quite some time more now, right? So in that case, the reason why it was shifted was, one of the reasons was because India had to do its development, like physical development, infrastructure wise. So if private property was a fundamental right, the government would not be able to take people's properties, which it needed to develop, right? So if there is a highway going through somebody's house, they need to let those people go, and they need to displace those people to other places, right? That would not have been possible if it was a fundamental right. Not that all laws are followed in the country as strictly, but on papers at least it would not be allowed, right? So again, there is this very interesting debate that comes in, that are individual rights more important, or is the development of the country more important? That there is a trade-off that we need to face over there, right? Because again, both are very important in their own ways, but what do we give more preference to, or what weighs heavy over the other? So this is also one important point that needs to be thought about.
Yeah, individualism or collectivism.
I think individual rights should be main priority, because if everyone has the, like, it's my opinion entirely, like if everyone has the choice, or everyone is empowered, or at least knowledgeable that this is the right choice for me, then I think from there it will grow to a bigger growth economically, or like whole country wise, at least from my perspective. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. And also we don't see a clear utopia anywhere right now, so everywhere is somewhere flawed in some ways. But the thing is, finding the best way possible to live peacefully, that's the goal, I guess. We are almost end of the podcast. There was a lot of topics that being discussed. At the last, last question I would ask all three of you is, we in the whole podcast we have talked about South Asian perspective, how free market and economic and all that. What do you guys what do you guys think about other countries that implemented some of the things, or at least free market principles have been implemented in some form of way in other countries that can be implemented in South Asia to have a better growth or something? Do you think you have any examples of that? Like what country are doing this thing that if it's done in South Asia, or at least similar to that policy to South Asia, it would be better. Let's say they have a better policing system, they have a better rule system, so that if somewhere something happens, they can call the 911 and that problem gets sorted. So something like that.
I think one is that we need to like the way in which South Asian countries usually think about the government. I think that needs to change, and because it changes, I feel the entire perspective or narrative changes because of that. We make the government a supreme body which is there for us to take the decisions, right? And it there is a common notion that, oh, if the government is saying so, they would know what's happening and that's why they are saying it. Okay, so if I would not name a particular country as such that does not think about it in this way, but I feel that this entire narrative of the government being that body who should be taking our decisions, and the lack of trust we have in people, this entire, if this changes, we would have more. So trust again is very important, right, for any system to function. If there is if there is clarity, there's transparency, there's trust, accountability, these things would these are the things that would make systems work efficiently, right? So if there is trust on other people, more people would be willing to innovate. There would be more innovation, there would be more entrepreneurs stepping in the market, there would be more competition. Of course, we know the benefits of competition, how it leads to the consumer benefiting at the end of the day, right, because of more choice, etc. So I think there are countries out there who are doing these things in a way that government is there, of course, that it has to be for particular functions, but then they are not babysitting their audience, right? They're not babysitting their people, which is again very much what is required in India, and I think India or South Asian countries as a whole. And I think this is something that we can do. The reason it's not happening is, of course, we know the reasons, are very evident, but it can happen in the long run. That's what I think.
Arpit.
Yeah, so like in the Indian context, as Krupa mentioned, that we really need to change our outlook towards government and what we expect from the government. So currently, like majority of the people see state as like, if I can use a Hindi word, I'll translate. They call it "my bap sarkar." Like, so basically, they are looking at different as a paternalistic state where the state is delivering all the goods and services and like taking care of all the aspects of an individual, and an individual is just seen as an instrument to dispense resources. So it just basically distorts everything because imagine if you are getting everything from the government, and basically it leaves no, it just makes you unproductive for you also as an individual, because if all your needs are being taken care of, but at the end of the day we know that this party cannot go for long. As Milton Friedman famously said, there are no free lunches. So we really need to recognize that in populist schemes, when a lot of freebies are given, there is someone who is bearing the cost. There is someone who is getting a harsh deal. So we really need to recognize that and work more towards, defining state capacity properly. But we also need to have empathy towards all the different other stakeholders, especially maybe work collaboratively with politicians, bureaucrats, other stakeholders to navigate this path, because we might have an idea, but we need to make this idea sellable to the people. And this is where organizations like SFL play a very major role in creating that organic movement among people. Because until and unless there is a germination of these ideas at the ground level, we cannot even try to architect something which can be replicated at a national level, or it can have a needle moving effect, as they say, or have a Overton window shifted. So one of the goals of our research program, which will be undertaking, is to give a civilizational perspective to these ideas of liberalism and free market, saying that these were also our native ideas and not like some kind of import from another country, but these are very much part of our culture. Because if you go by Angus Madison World GDP reports, like we all used to dominate in the GDP metrics just maybe 500 or 600 years back. So that is also a testament that we did have those economic frameworks which catapulted us to that kind of stature. So it's also a journey to bring back those wisdom and then make those ideas more sellable to the people, and then effectively working on retreat of the government. So in our country, like the honorable prime minister from different public forums has also been very critical of this. He calls it the Revadi culture, like all the different sops which are given. But he also has like certain political compulsions to sometimes indulge in some public schemes. So, but they have been trying to make some retreats, have been trying to privatize certain PSUs, removing a lot of laws which might be a friction in businesses doing productively. Yeah, so that we can remove all these bottlenecks and create a very healthy environment for economic activities to happen. So yeah, it's a long journey, but we really need to identify all the stakeholders who are gonna play a pivotal role, and also work at an individual societal level through our activities of having sambas, book discussion clubs, so that these ideas find more resonance among the people, and also work at higher level, at a policy level, at a advocacy level. So that is where I think somewhere down the line there is gonna be meet of ideas from bottom up and top down, and in this long journey of economic growth, we will have much more robust reforms actually. And as already rise of Asia is taking place, so we all South Asian countries are gonna have happy time if we keep on working towards that direction of engaging more with the world.
That's nice. Like as Krupa said, that there is a need in South Asia to change the narrative that we should be always dependent on the government, and SFL is exactly helping you to build the knowledge that how to choose the right thing, or like what you want actually. So yeah, Maksud, for the last remarks.
I actually like almost 100% agree with Krupa and Arpit, but my point of view is that we need to start with our education, because I can only remember one quote from Milton Friedman. He said that only a crisis, actual or perceived, produces real change. And when I think about that change, he also mentioned that when the crisis occurs, the action that are taken depend on the ideas that are lying around. So we need the idea. We need to start working on the idea first. Because if you look at the world after the Cold War ended, even after the Second World War ended, our world, our institutions, all were built upon an idea. So we had to create a narrative. And to create that narrative, we have to start from our education. We need to teach our kids about entrepreneurship, how free market works, about competitions, and the ideas of a free economy. So we need to work slowly, but I believe it's possible that within the next generation, South Asian people will be more towards liberalism and move away from socialism, because government cannot fix everything, and we need to take whatever we can upon ourselves to fix the issue. And we have to start with education to actually change how people think, how the culture perceives businesses and entrepreneurship.
That's really good. But are you suggesting that some central authority teach everyone what's the good thing to be taught?
Like I mentioned, that whatever we can, we have to take it upon ourselves. So even if there is no textbook or national curricula that defines what is capitalism, what is free market, what is entrepreneurship, we have to teach our kids on ourselves. Obviously, we can do that. And
family level, yeah, he can. Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful insight, starting from education. And also, thank you for sharing the goals, guys. So, Dibbo, do you have to say anything more, or maybe we can?
We can in
proceed
the live.
on
I think
conclusion?
a lot of people joined today. It
Yeah,
could be
I
more-
hope that almost all of our South Asian fellows friends have joined tonight. So if so since we have all the ACAD member here tonight, guys, if you have anything, any announcement to make for the South Asian LCs, this is the perfect platform, because I know that something is actually cooking from ACAD Trek. So please, very briefly.
Yeah, I do have a very important announcement to make. So all South Asian LCs who are watching this, and if anybody's watching outside of South Asia as well, please look into the email that I'm going to send tonight. It is for the difficult dialogue series that we are going to start very soon. So it basically talks about, so it's a colloquia series, okay, and it's called the difficult dialogue series because what we are doing is we are trying to talk about issues that people generally are either afraid to talk about, they shy away from it, or they find it too complex to indulge in. Right. So this is the entire objective behind this series, is that we want to encourage our coordinators to be able to talk for the issues that they think are important, right, but may face problems in talking about it. So how we are starting with this is basically this month, on the 25th and 26th of June, we have 2 trainings by Alan Carey, who's from Cato Institute, right? He is going to be talking about polarization and other similar issues. And the next month, which is on 5th of July, we have a training by Kumar Anand. Again, he's talking about how we disagree, but without hurting other people's sentiments. That's on 5th of July. All these 3 trainings are happening 6:30 p.m. IST, which is 9 a.m. EDT time, right? So please look out for the email. And please do join in for the trainings first. For the 3 trainings, you need to be eligible. So apart from the trainings, we will also have in-person colloquia held in different countries. Okay, so we have like 4 continents where we're going to have this. And in order for you to be eligible to be able to make it to the colloquia, which is going to be, of course, fully paid, to be able to make it there, you need to attend at least 2 out of the 3 trainings. And if you can attend the 3 trainings, of course, that's the best, right? So please make sure you look into it, look into the email and register as soon as possible, because the first training, as I said, is on 25th of this month, right? So looking forward to seeing everybody there. In case you have any questions, please reach out to me. I am not going to give out my email ID here, but you will receive an email from me and you can reach out to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Krupa. That was a very important announcement. Yeah, Arpit and Maksud, if you have anything to announce.
So anything else? I think we are still to talk internally before we announce it. So that
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Let's see the big surprise what Akatrim's cooking. Okay.
I mean, South Asia is this is an announcement on behalf of me that South Asia SFL is actually doing wonderful projects. This podcast is also one of the impact projects that we have initiated, and there are so many things about to appear, and the pattern of events and everything is quite changing, evolving. So I think everyone, all the LCs should buckle up their seats and be into this, and because we're having a wonderful journey ahead. And of course, with your participation and everything, you will be getting rewards, incentives, and wonderful opportunities ahead. So, yes, Dibbo.
Okay, thanks everyone. I see a lot of the people joining and a lot of the people are commenting. Dennis was,
and look at those comments.
Yeah, Dennis was here. Ifa said thanks to Krupa for the updates. It was an amazing discussion. Hopefully, all the viewers will tune in for the next episode also. Thank you, our guests. Thank you, our viewers, for coming here. I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thanks, everyone.